Hello, welcome to my political news opinion video of major news from October and November 2019. I apologize for not creating a separate October video, but I was very busy around the time I normally create these videos. I hope to allow this video to give enough time to both months. October was a month in which I largely only followed national news, and looking into the month, it seems that is all the media did as well. As such, the following topics will be discussed in this video. Clinton versus Gabbard. Justin Trudeau wins second term as Canada's Prime Minister and why it matters in the USA. Facebook and Twitter's decisions on political advertising. Impeachment inquiry leads to Republicans storming secure hearing and Hunter Biden resigning from a Chinese company. A U.S. withdrawal from Syria opening the door for Kurdish genocide. And the Kurds helping us kill the ISIS leader anyway, and Bernie Sanders' heart attack, and why I consider him the grandfather of Generation Z progressives. November, I was back on top of the news. I will cover Oak Hill appointing a new member of the Oak Hill City Council, election results in 3 gubernatorial elections and some state legislative elections as well. DACA heard before the Supreme Court. The November Democratic debate. Trying to understand why politics is considered bad at family get-togethers. Michael Bloomberg running for president. Trump going to Afghanistan and reopening talks with the Taliban, and Obama saying he would try to stop Bernie 2020 just because he's afraid of what it means for his, quote, legacy, end quote. Clinton versus Gabbard. So, Hillary Clinton once again floated the idea of running for president. Not only is it infuriating for her to insult the American people by even pretending to have a chance, but she went on a podcast and attacked Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. Normally this wouldn't matter, but she decided to accuse Gabbard of collusion with Russia. So, the result was an old, delusional, unpopular woman accusing an active U.S. National Guard member and Congresswoman of treason, which is technically punishable by death. Suggesting that a member of Congress and a member of the military should be killed is absurd and ruins Clinton's reputation even further, if that is even possible. As I said on Facebook, Mrs. Clinton, go back into your exile. Just retire. You've accomplished plenty in your life. If you remained how you were in college, responding and disagreeing with a member of Congress who had just spoke before you at your graduation, you would deserve the legacy of a presidency. However, since Bill lost an election in Arkansas, due to you being yourself, you decided to reinvent yourself. Your reinvention is awful for the American people, and a relic of the toxic culture you came of age in. Please retire from politics. No one wants you anymore. Don't worry about a female candidate. We might get one. And it isn't because she is a woman, but because she is best for women, which is in stark contrast to you, Mrs. Clinton. Justin Trudeau wins second term as Canada's Prime Minister and why it matters in the United States. In Canada, the incumbent Liberal Party Prime Minister Justin Trudeau won a second term as Prime Minister under a minority government. A minority Canadian government means that the Liberal Party has the most seats in the House of Commons, but not a majority, as the other parties hold too many of the other seats. Trudeau won this election despite many controversies, including a blackface scandal in which he has worn blackface about 1,000,000 different times. Blackface is not acceptable, and Trudeau wasn't wearing it in a year in which we didn't already know that. Through scandal, people learned that Trudeau was truly who they feared, a privileged son of a former prime minister disconnected from the average Canadian. Despite that, however, Trudeau won as his opponent was an uninspiring Andrew Scheer of the Conservative Party. What this shows is that an uninspiring candidate cannot defeat someone rocked by legitimate scandal. For America, this would mean that the centrist and conservative Democrats would likely still lose to Donald Trump, if he survives this impeachment inquiry, as those representing that ideology are uninspiring. So Democrats, nominate an inspiring liberal or progressive. Facebook and Twitter's decisions on political advertising. Political advertising in October was hit by two polar opposite responses from social media. Facebook has decided to allow any and all forms of political advertising, true or not, to be made using the platform. In response, Twitter announced that all political advertising, true or not, was banned from the platform. Both a horribly incorrect response. Facebook's policy of allowing all political advertising is bad for America, as it allows people to spread misleading facts, incorrect figures, or spread lies in political elections. In political campaigns, it is important voters know the truth, and unfortunately, Facebook's policy is to wish you good luck in determining what is true and what isn't. Facebook is allowing anyone who wants to spend a lot of money to influence elections to do so regardless of their motives. That is why Facebook's method is unacceptable. Twitter's policy of banning political advertising is also horrible. Smaller campaigns rely on social media advertising a lot of the time to spread their message. Without the massive amount of Twitter users available, many small campaigns which would help lead America forward won't be heard by a large number of people. Therefore, the best policy for both campaigns and the people is a midpoint between these two extremes. Impeachment inquiry leads to Republicans storming secure hearing and Hunter Biden resigning from Chinese company. The impeachment inquiry into Donald Trump led a group of Republican lawmakers to storm a secure meeting room and compromise the security status of the room by doing so. A majority of the lawmakers would already have been granted access to the testimony as they were members of the relevant committees. To explain how the testimony was happening when it was closed door, and the minutes of which were later publicly released, there were 3 committees allowed to attend the testimonies from the various witnesses, with 57 Democrats and 47 Republicans being members of those committees, meaning Republicans made up 45% of the committee's members. At the beginning of the day, the Democrats would have 1 hour to ask questions. There would be a break, then Republicans would have 1 hour to ask questions. There was a longer break, followed by 45-minute times alternating between the Democrats and the Republicans until all the questions were answered. Since the Republicans stormed the room under false pretense that they weren't involved when they definitely were involved, I found the act to be purely for show, hoping and praying that my House Representative, Carol Miller, would not be so ignorant as to have participated in the storming of the meeting. I looked for a list of representatives who participated. To my dismay, I found that not only did Congresswoman Miller participate, but she also already had access if she were simply to follow security procedures as a member of one of the committees allowed into the testimony. I sent an email through her website to explain in great detail my disappointment in her actions as my Congresswoman. But considering her track record in the state legislature, I doubt even a staffer of hers read a single word of my email. It was worth a shot, though. On a more positive note, Hunter Biden resigned from a Chinese company's board as people discovered his family's corruption. It is corrupt for the vice president's son to be given a board membership of a company in a foreign country in which they have no expertise in. It is worth pointing out that it is legal for these companies to do this form of corruption, and many family members of Trump administration officials participate in the exact same corruption. Another thing that should be noted is that even if this corruption were illegal, it would still have been illegal for President Trump to extort Ukraine to investigate the matter in exchange for military aid, as extortion is a crime. However, even without the extortion, Trump would still have committed a certain kind of campaign finance violation, which also happens to fall under treason-related laws, in which no campaign for any political office can ask a foreign individual for a campaign contribution. The investigation into Hunter Biden would, under these laws, be considered an in-kind donation to the Trump 2020 campaign. An in-kind donation is when someone gives a campaign something of value, but not in the form of money. Some things that fall under this category would be letting a campaign use an office space without rent, which would be a monthly contribution in the amount of the rent. Providing food to campaign volunteers without charging the campaign or the volunteers would be a contribution in the amount it cost to make the food. Or asking someone to spend money in a way that is damaging to the image of a political opponent. U.S. announces withdrawal from Syria, opening a path for Kurdish genocide. Kurds still help us kill ISIS leader anyway. The United States performed good policy in the worst possible way when President Trump ordered the withdrawal of American troops from Syria overnight. This creates a power vacuum, which is what led to the rise of ISIS and other terrorist groups in the first place. As a result of the United States withdrawing so quickly, an ethnic cleanse of our allies, the Kurds, began, and many ISIS fighters escaped from prison. Turkey's dictator almost immediately invaded Syria and began attacking Kurdish men, women, and children. The reason for this policy of killing the Kurds is because of a Kurdish terrorist group in Turkey. However, the Kurds located outside of Turkey do not support the terrorist group, and as such, Turkey is using false pretenses. I remember not even 2 days later seeing a news report in which they showed Turkish soldiers shooting and killing an innocent Kurdish civilian who was unarmed while laughing and referring to the human as an animal. If you are not aware, killing a civilian / non-fighter is considered an international war crime. Yet, the Turkish soldier was proud of this deed, telling the reporter to film him killing the civilian. This was horrible, disgusting, and blood on President Donald J. Trump's hands for not withdrawing slowly, as is unfortunately the only correct way to do so. President Trump would claim to have signed an agreement with Turkey to stop the invasion and genocide. However, evidence shows there was no stop to the attacks into Syria. This reminded me of Neville Chamberlain proudly holding up a treaty with Germany as soon as he got off of a plane. Hitler would almost immediately break that treaty. Despite all of this, Kurdish fighters still told the American intelligence community the location of the leader of ISIS. President Trump had questioned Kurdish loyalty when the genocide by the Turks was first mentioned, yet they remained loyal enough to help us kill the leader of ISIS. It is President Trump's right to take some of the credit for this, as he did in an approximately hour-long speech, but the only appreciation we've given our closest allies in the effort is nothing except for death and destruction. That is unacceptable. American troops must be withdrawn from the Middle East, but overnight just leads to more death and later on more war. This time without as many allies with faith that we would be loyal. Bernie Sanders' heart attack and why he's the grandfather of Generation Z progressives. So next, I talk about how Bernie Sanders experienced a heart attack while at a campaign rally. As soon as the rally ended, Senator Sanders sought medical treatment. He was shocked to learn of his medical diagnosis, as he was an endurance athlete when younger and retained many of the skills from his athletic days. It should be understood that this heart attack was relatively minor, and that Bernie does not have many health problems. He is a healthy man who simply got a health scare. Bernie admits he is appreciative of his congressional health insurance and would like to see every American receive the gold standard of healthcare that Congress members receive. This shows me Nothing stops him from thinking about how to politically help the American people. Politics is Bernie Sanders' life, and I love that about him. Bernie Sanders is America's only hope. Everyone else is only a little bit okay, or wouldn't fundamentally change anything. I love Bernie, and consider him in the same regard as my family. I have no doubt that Bernie would feel the same about everyone in this country. I remember in 2016 the amount of people my age who would just want Grandpa Bernie back after the beginning of the general election between Clinton and Trump. Bernie, know that every single one of your supporters love you, and you have already changed their lives forever. You will be President of the United States, and whether you are for 2 terms or 2 minutes, you will have made the world a better place. And Grandpa Bernie, show them that you're feeling good as hell. Oak Hill City Council's new member. Recently, Paul Baker resigned from his position as Oak Hill City Council member from Ward 2 in order to move for a job opportunity. The city began accepting applications from individuals and decided they would appoint one of them at the November council meeting. I was among those who applied. I had included a list of people who supported my appointment to the council, my resume, an unofficial copy of my old business license, and an unofficial copy of an award for receiving 3rd place in the nation for a game I had coded. More documents than any other applicant. In addition to my application, the council received applications from special education teacher Benitez Johnson, Vicky Pizzino, I'm not actually aware of what her career is, Mountain Gas Company local service technician Chris Gill, former councilman Jeff Atha, and senior intelligence analyst Tim Buskus. At the meeting, I gave a 10-minute speech detailing why I should be appointed to the seat. Vicky Pizzino also attended to speak as to why she should be given the position. And I believe that it was Tim Buskus who also spoke as to why he should be appointed. The council decided to nominate Benitez Johnson, Jeff Atha, and Vicky Pizzino for the vacancy. I immediately looked back at the only one of the 3 who were attending, Vicky Pizzino, who I have met before during the campaign, as a sign of support for her. Council voted 2 for Benitez Johnson, 2 for Jeff Atha, and 1 for Vicky Pizzino. In cases of ties, the mayor exercises his only official duty by casting a tie-breaking vote. Mayor Wright voted for Benitez Johnson. I do congratulate Mr. Johnson for his appointment and do believe that he will be a good councilman. However, I feel that the council voted in a way indicating they already had their candidate in mind, and that their decision undermined the fact that 3 of us went to speak to the council that night. Only one of those who spoke received a vote, but even she only received 1. Again, I believe that Councilman Johnson will do well in his position, but I feel that the way the council dealt with the appointment to be shady. I do not believe that anyone should be appointed to the council during a meeting they didn't even attend. I do not totally agree politically with Vicky Pizzino or Tim Buskus. In fact, I think it is probably more likely I would vote for Benitez Johnson in an election. However, I would have viewed Pizzino's or Buskus's appointment as more legitimate. I am not okay with the fact that the council made their decisions in a shady way before the meeting even started. If they had just looked at the applications and came to a decision, that would have been fine. However, having attended the meeting, I believe their decision to vote for who they did for each of them was, for one, an immovable opinion of each of them, and for two, may have involved shady decision making for those who voted for Mr. Johnson and Mr. Atha. I respect the council, and that is why I point this out. I expect more from the elected body that makes decisions for Oak Hill. A few of the members I supported during the election, and so I will not say that this decision goes as far as corruption, but it is very, very shady. I wish luck to Councilman Johnson, and again do believe he will do well as councilman. 2019 state elections. In November, Kentucky, Mississippi, and Louisiana held governor's elections, while elections for Louisiana State Senate, Louisiana State House, Mississippi State Senate, Mississippi State House, Virginia State Senate, Virginia House of Delegates, and New Jersey General Assembly took place. These elections saw Donald Trump either being a topic of discussion during the campaigns, or Donald Trump himself became involved. As such, these elections show how much Donald Trump is able to persuade voters by supporting candidates. This would prove an important thing to evaluate, as many former senators and those close to Republican senators say that around 20 Republican senators would vote to remove the president from office if they felt that it would not hurt their re-election chances. That being explained, the results of the elections are as follows. A Democrat was elected Kentucky governor against an incumbent Republican governor. A Republican was elected Mississippi governor, succeeding a term-limited Republican governor. The Mississippi State House will have 75 Republicans, 46 Democrats, and 1 independent. The Mississippi State Senate will have 36 Republicans and 16 Democrats. A Democrat was reelected to a second term as Louisiana governor. The Louisiana State House will have 68 Republicans, 2 independents, 35 Democrats. The Louisiana State Senate will have 27 Republicans and 12 Democrats. The Virginia House of Delegates will have 55 Democrats and 45 Republicans. The Virginia State Senate will have 21 Democrats and 19 Republicans. I apologize if I messed up saying any of that. And the November General and the New Jersey General Assembly, which by the way is only the lower house of the New Jersey legislature, will have 50 Democrats and 30 Republicans. Supreme Court on DACA. Deferred action for childhood arrivals, DACA, was the subject of a Supreme Court case recently. The question was whether President Donald J. Trump held the authority to end the DACA policy. DACA is a policy in which children of illegal immigrants are immune to being deported if they came here as a child. The reason that this policy was put in place is because many of the children and now adults who came here as children, if deported, would not be able to communicate or navigate many of the countries they would be forced into, effectively leaving them to die in an unfamiliar country. Illegal immigrants are humans, and so the moral and correct thing under international law is to make common sense immigration legislation such as DACA. I understand measures to ensure people use legal methods of immigration to come to this country are important. However, children who are or were too young to understand what they were doing should not be punished. Illegal immigration should be a crime of intent, where it must be proved that the individual understood the action to be illegal and intentionally broke the law. Another important thing to point out is that President Donald Trump has spoken against almost every form of legal immigration in the United States. He has called family-based migration, quote, chain migration, end quote, and otherwise he's saying that it should be limited or abolished. Note that you can only sponsor a child, spouse, sibling, or parent. No other family connections are allowed. Not only did the First Lady help her parents move here under this option, even though her husband demonizes the option constantly, but 2/3 of all legal immigration falls under this category. Sponsoring someone doesn't automatically grant them access to America. They still have lots of paperwork. They just effectively have a reference on their applications. There is the visa lottery, which is so incredibly misunderstood, including by President Trump. There are a number of people that is set to be allowed a visa into the United States of America from each country to select the people who receives these visas. People are randomly selected from among all those who apply and meet certain requirements to be considered at all. The visa lottery has been demonized as foreign countries giving us their, quote, worst people, end quote. However, the foreign countries are not involved in the selection process, and the, quote, worst people, end quote, wouldn't meet requirements to get into the United States. Asylum seekers who are protected under international law have been characterized as illegal immigrants, despite that not being the case, until they prove otherwise by the Trump administration, which is very dangerous. To qualify as an asylum seeker, the individual must be in legitimate fear of their lives. As such, opening them up to the possibility of being deported back to their country is opening them up to die. Student and work visas, which are demonized because people feel that it takes opportunities away from Americans. Understand that the Supreme Court has ruled in many decisions that make every single thing that you worry about affirmative action or foreign students/workers is illegal for employers or universities already. So plans to achieve this is not as simple as you think. Setting target numbers for a specific demographic, for instance, is illegal. Another thing studies show is that immigrants do not take jobs away from American citizens. Automation and efficiency improvements are what are taking your jobs away. Immigrants are just the scapegoat of the rich. Then there's the rich person only option, which I haven't heard the president criticize. Though, who knows, he may have, and I just don't know. If you invest $500,000 in American business and create just 5 jobs, you can immigrate legally to the United States. The only legal form of immigration I believe the president supports is this buying your way in. This is not an American value. It is an American value to support the poor, the sick, and the unfortunate people, including allowing them into the country. So if you want to be principled, either you agree with Trump that only rich foreigners should be allowed into America, or start believing in illegal immigration that you have categorized as something else. Note, if you believe your ancestors came here the, quote, right way, end quote, note that if it was in America's first 100 years, all they had to do was come here. No paperwork, no line, no nothing. Because we had no immigration laws back then. I'm not suggesting we go back to that point, but don't act like white European immigrants had any trouble or any line to wait in until much later. November Democratic debate. Some key moments from the November Democratic debate are: Elizabeth Warren explained her wealth tax plan. She said, quote, "Doing a wealth tax is not about punishing anyone. It is about saying you built something great in this country, but you did it using workers all of us paid to educate. You did it using you getting your goods on roads and bridges all of us helped pay for. You did it protected by police and firefighters. All of us paid the salaries for it. So when you make it big, when you make it really big, when you make it top 1/10 of 1% big, pitch in 2 cents so everybody else gets a chance to make it. Here's the thing. That is something that Democrats care about, independents care about, and Republicans care about. Because regardless of party affiliation, people understand across this country our government is working better and better for billionaires, for the rich, for the well-connected. End quote. I would also like to point out to Bill Gates that you said you don't support Warren's plan, then said you'd be okay paying $20 billion. Her plan would take less than $20 billion from you. It's still billions, but less than what you said you'd be okay with. Kamala Harris went after Tulsi Gabbard, but Tulsi was unafraid to push back and tell it like it is. Senator Harris was lying in order to discredit her. Bad idea, Senator Harris. Tulsi pointed out that Harris had no substance-based argument against Tulsi. Senator Harris tried and failed to recover. When asked whether he would have the Justice Department investigate Trump, Joe Biden said he would let the Justice Department make that decision. Biden said that he wouldn't order his Justice Department around, instead trusting them to do the correct thing. It is important. This is important because Donald Trump in 2016, when asked this, said he would try to investigate Hillary Clinton if he won. Biden, while I do not want him to be president, would at least return the Justice Department to how it is supposed to interact with the presidency. He said that it would be the Attorney General's job to determine who should be investigated and who shouldn't be. God. Billionaire Tom Steyer said that he was the only one who would say that climate change was the number one priority of his campaign. Worth pointing out that Governor Jay Inslee's campaign was focused heavily on climate change, because climate change policy was a hallmark of his governorship, though Governor Inslee did drop out of the race earlier this year. Steyer claimed that neither Warren nor Biden would take it as seriously as him. He said on day one of his presidency he would declare a national emergency due to climate change. Biden said he took climate change very seriously, then pointed out that Steyer supported the expansion of fossil fuels while Biden was fighting for a green infrastructure law. Let me go on a rant as to why climate change should be the two words you insist on calling it instead of global warming. Global warming, while accurate, as we've had years hotter than ever before, oversimplifies the effects of climate change and makes disbelievers believe that snow proves it wrong, when that isn't accurate. Climate change does result in hotter summers and less polar ice. However, it also makes storms more severe. In the last decade alone, we've had the worst flood in 500 years, then the worst flood in 1,000 years, only a few years later. Climate change means that the climate of every location on Earth is changing in some way. And it is due to human activity in large part. At the poles, the climate becomes warmer and ice melts quicker. The hole in the ozone layer is above Antarctica a lot of the time, for instance. If you are in areas affected by hurricanes, they will be worse. If you are in an area with rain or snow, either the warming part means nothing happens, or the climate change part makes floods more common and more severe thunderstorms and blizzards. That is why it is important to say climate change instead of global warming. Cory Booker targeted Joe Biden for his stance on marijuana. Biden said that he doesn't think marijuana should be legalized. Booker joked that he thought Biden may have been high when he said it. I agree with Booker. If you look into the history on marijuana, you would realize that when the president first wanted to make it illegal, he asked for a study into it to be conducted. The study found no reason why it was dangerous or should be illegal. What was found was that marijuana was popular with people of color and immigrants. So marijuana was banned for explicitly racist reasons. Marijuana is safer than alcoholic beverages and safer than tobacco products. I have done none of the three of them personally, as being drunk or high seems undesirable to me. However, I have friends who have used them, and it's fine for them to do that. I understand what science says, and I also understand that if marijuana could be purchased from a legitimate store instead of a drug dealer, it would make the community at large, and marijuana culture specifically, safer for everyone. I will tell you that I know maybe 5 people, including myself, who never smoked marijuana in the high school class of 2019. Legalizing marijuana would actually make it more difficult for high schoolers to get it, because we could regulate the age instead of a drug dealer who doesn't care and just wants money. Even if you believe marijuana should be illegal, at least admit that the schedule it is on, which also includes heroin, is too extreme a rating for it. Why always political arguments instead of debates at Thanksgiving? Around Thanksgiving, I saw many politicians share their tips on how to bring them up during dinner, and many non-politically inclined individuals complaining about political talk at dinner. I believe this is largely due to our society's culture on political disagreements. We argue with passion about politics, when we should debate the facts and reasoning instead. If you are going to bring up a political point during Thanksgiving, then explain the facts and reasoning behind your opinion calmly. Allow people to disagree, no matter how wrong they are. Even if the person becomes angry and tries to turn it into an argument, stay calm and continue using facts. If it gets out of hand, simply explain why it is important for political disagreements to occur in our country, and ask if they want to talk about a less controversial topic. Debates are necessary. Arguments are poison. Keep that in mind. Michael Bloomberg is authoritarian. Here's why Bloomberg is authoritarian. Note, he did these policies while a Republican or an independent. He supported stop and frisk for all 12 years that he served as New York mayor. He banned the big gulp serving size for soda. He banned bagel shops from donating bagels to the homeless. With these three policies alone, we can see the kind of leader that Michael Bloomberg is. By supporting stop and frisk and apologizing for it only about 2 minutes before running for president, it is evident that he is not sorry for a policy that targeted minorities and wasted resources. Nothing was found over 90% of the time. Banning the big gulp serving size is simply bizarre, but incredibly authoritarian. It is one thing to promote healthy habits. It's another thing to have your voters buy 2 of the size right below big gulp just because you want to have a tough position. As for banning bagel shops from donating bagels to the homeless, this is again one that he claimed was because he wanted to make sure the homeless received healthy food, and the bagels, quote, couldn't, end quote, be regulated in any way, according to him. To me, I just want the homeless to have food. I don't think they really care whether the bagel is healthy or not. One of the good things Trump has done. On Thanksgiving, President Trump spent time with U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan and announced diplomatic talks with the Taliban. Many Democrats have wrongly characterized this as a bad decision. On holidays that involve family, the president and or vice president should spend time with our military members who can't celebrate with their families. This is a gesture that will help soldiers enjoy their day and remind them of the good parts of life. Peace and diplomatic talks are the only way to de-escalate the never-ending wars and work toward a safer withdrawal. So in contrast with what the president did in Syria, he made wonderful decisions in Afghanistan. Obama would stop Bernie 2020 to protect Obama 2008 and 2012. Former President Barack Obama was in the news recently as reports said that he would speak out against a Bernie 2020 nomination if Bernie were to win. Let me be clear. President Obama was a decent president. But the reason that Bernie Sanders is so appealing is because he would get more done than Obama did. Obama recognizes this as well. Instead of remaining principled and supporting a quote change, end quote hope, end quote candidate, he wants to stop such a candidacy. This is not sorry about that, hold up. This is not about what Obama thinks is best for America. This is Obama wanting to protect his legacy. If Bernie Sanders' agenda is made into law, then Obama's achievements would be footnotes to those policies. Due to his ego, President Obama feels that being the first African American president would not be enough of a legacy for him. Obama was a C-grade president, but with the D- of Bush and F+ of Trump, he looks better. If a Bernie Sanders presidency occurs, Bernie would be at least a B+ president, therefore ruining Obama's ideas of what his legacy should be. If you are a Democrat and Bernie is going to be nominated, do not listen to President Obama's objections. To conclude, please like this video, share it with your friends and family, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, making sure to hit the bell icon. Also, please check out my Instagram at Lopez40Kill, Twitter at Lopez40Kill, and Facebook, facebook.com/Colby.Lopez.12, which all should be linked in the description. I am Colby Lopez, and even though my throat hurts from all this speaking, I approve these messages.